thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be included.
It's so
It's
great.
nice that you're doing this series.
We are so excited. It has been so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So great to connect to all these incredible women.
Yeah, and we have some interviews that haven't aired yet that are just getting edited. We'll have out soon. And every time we have them, we're just blown away by it. This is exactly what we all needed, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Marcia, will you start by telling people a little bit about yourself and what you do now, and just let people know who you are a little bit?
Sure. I'm Marcia Davies. My role at the Mortgage Bankers Association, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and I'm also the founder of Empower, which is our networking organization for women in real estate finance. We have had the network up and running for over 4 years, and we've engaged with more than 22,000 women, and I'm proud to say men as well. Not only in events where people can network and make connections, but professional development and webinars and a leadership video series. So we're very excited I am really happy with not only that initiative, but to be able to have that as part of my job. I've been in the industry more than 30 years. I spent 21 years at Freddie Mac and was able to reinvent myself 4 times while I was there. And then I took a break and stepped away from the industry for a few years and ended up coming back and working at HUD, helping the FHA commissioner, who was Dave Stevens at the time during the housing crisis, and worked at a government regulator, which was an amazing experience to be in a regulator's office during that time in our industry's history. And I've been at MBA for more than 9 years now. It's time flies. It's hard to believe. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited about the work that the two of you are doing.
We're excited too. We're very excited. Wow. How exciting. What an exciting history you have and a behind the scenes understanding of the market and all the challenges and probably some of the current challenges we're facing right now.
Yes.
With the forbearances and how all the companies are dealing with it. It's
right.
I feel like we're always this evolving, okay, now what? Okay,
right.
Here we go.
I call it a high stakes game of whack-a-mole when you really feel like, okay, we've addressed something and we're moving the ball forward. Another issue pops up and it pops up fast and it may be more important than the last issue you had. So I think in this unprecedented time, I've watched this industry come together. I've watched all of the industry practitioners work with the federal regulators to try to find the best solutions to help borrowers who have experienced hardship during this time. And it's just really been, it's hard to believe it's been, what, 9 weeks? It feels like it's been, 9 years. It's happened so fast and furious, and all at a time, Liz, when we've had to stay home. Yes. When we haven't been able to work in our offices and see our colleagues and brainstorm or catch up in the hallway, or, you had to find new ways to work. And if you lead teams, you also had to find ways to connect and keep your team motivated and also make sure they're doing okay. Right. They're the ripple effect of what happens. I happen not to have young children anymore. Mine are grown. But I have people who work for me with young children, and the fact that they have to homeschool and work, it's incredible. And now as we're approaching summer camps may not be open, right, and there isn't school. So they're also trying to balance, how do I manage my workload as well as my demands at home? It's really intense for a lot of people.
And regionally different. Like we were just talking about when you came on. I know that the East Coast is under a little more demands than we are here on the West Coast currently, but a denser population basis. So I can see how that would be. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's great. And I want to emphasize that I think it's cool. I'm a little envious of all the back end stuff that you just know on how things work. And so maybe at some point we can chit chat about all that. That would be fun.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. That's what comes with age.
Time.
So you really brought up something, like this is the perfect segue into the first question we have for you, because women in particular are having to engage in bravery and like move into some pretty brave spaces to navigate what's going on. But we really want to know how women producers can be brave in the mortgage industry and ask for what they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because if you think about it, that is the group that has had to work remotely, a lot of them, right? For the majority of their career, whether they've been on the road a lot or they work for an organization that's headquartered in a different part of the country. And what's happened now is there are these increased demands. If you have elderly parents, or again, if you have children, you know, you have all of these other, I'm going to say, priorities come your way. And what I believe is that women are so busy producing results at home and at work, it's hard for us to know how to advocate for what we need. And so my advice to women, and particularly the producers that you're talking about, is really sit down and think about what it is you want and then ask for it. I love, I don't know if you know Carla Harris, she is this amazing force within the finance industry. And she always says, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think that women do a great job of balancing all of the reasons why they can take care of someone else or something else, but we're not as good at balancing all of the reasons we need to take care of ourselves. So I always say, make a list of what's most important, what you're not getting now that's really important to you, and then make the ask. And don't feel bad about making the ask. We're always worried if somebody's going to not like us for making the ask. But if it's important to us and it's going to help us produce more, that's the case you have to make. I always say, come in prepared, have your data ready, explain to the person who, whether it's your boss or your boss's boss, whoever it is that you have to have this conversation with, show them all the good you bring to the table and how you can do even more, or you can produce results quicker, better, faster, whatever you're trying to do and accomplish, and go in and make the ask and be unapologetic about it. You know, if women deliver results, and we expect to deliver results, and a lot of times I don't think we give ourselves credit for how hard we work and how often we show up and bring those results. Don't assume people know what you bring to the table. Be sure to tell them, and I guarantee you it's more than they know.
Nice.
So great. Nice. I love that.
I think that sometimes we have to be prepared for them to say yes when we ask, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Yes, yeah.
Oftentimes,
you know, it's funny. I was negotiating something with a former boss, and I went in and I was ready with all of my data, and I started to make my case, and I made the ask, and he said yes. And then I kept talking. And he said, you got me to say yes. You know, like, because I started putting caveats on it. Well, you know, oh, thank you. You know, I will. And I started minimizing my ask because I was so prepared with my next justification. And he stopped me and he goes, you got the yes. You don't need to keep talking. And so I think sometimes when we get the yes, we need to just sit and digest it and appreciate it. Take a moment. Because a lot of times we're so ready with trying to continue to justify or to be how we're going to execute against what we just got the yes for. We don't need to have that conversation at that point in time. So you're right. A lot of times the hardest part is making the ask. And a lot of times you'll be surprised what happens once you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you wish you had known when you got into this business?
Oh, that's a good question. I wish I would have known how many opportunities there would be in front of me. I went in with a very specific skill set. It never occurred to me that I would have a career path. You know, I was 25 5 when I entered the industry, so you can do the math and figure out how old I am. And I just thought I was there to do a job. I never looked at it in the beginning as a career. And I was fortunate enough to have opportunities where I reinvented myself and I developed skills that I was able to leverage in other jobs. And I guess that's one of the important lessons is you need to take a risk. You need to step out of your comfort zone, because those skills that you learn will take you even further. And sometimes I think we love staying in that comfortable place, right? I know how to close a deal. I know how to make a sale. I've got a great portfolio of clients and I can source new business. But what if you took those skills and moved them into a whole different area? Because clearly you have good communication skills and you're a good negotiator and you're a good people person. And you could build a whole new side of your, not only personal development, but your leadership when you step out of that comfort zone and trust your abilities and apply them in new ways.
I like that idea. I think when it comes to producers, we're thrown into it. Here, produce, go make some money, find some loans, do some loans. And you're like, how do I take an application, right? Like, where do I pull credit? How does all this work? And then they promote their big producers to managers, and they do it the same way. There isn't any guidance or help right as you climb that ladder. Is there someplace you would recommend as people are going that direction where they could get help on how to manage? Is there a pathway? How did you learn?
Well, I think it's great that you identify there's a difference between being a great technician or a great salesperson or a great, you name it, whatever it is, communicator, whatever, and taking somebody who's been so successful because they are technically capable and they're producing these results and putting them in a job that is a leadership job or a management job, which has a whole different set of skills and attributes you need. I was very fortunate. I was at Freddie Mac at the time when I went from being what would be considered like a staff level person to a manager when I had the responsibility of managing other people. They had a requirement that we went through a 2-week intensive management leadership training class so that we could learn skills and we could understand different scenarios that could come our way. And I know that there are a lot of training programs out there. There are a lot of leadership programs out there. So if you work for an organization and you're looking at applying for a job and you get a promotion, or you're plucked out of your current role because you're so good at it and somebody says, I'm going to take you to this next level, ask for leadership training. Say, I love that idea. Do we offer courses here at wherever the place you work at? I would like to really develop, learn, and refine how to be the best people manager I could be. Ask for it. Nice. And again, a lot of organizations offer it, but there are so many courses out there that you can take to help you. And I even encourage my season manager. I have a great leadership team. I encourage all of them to go back through different forms of leadership training every 5-6 years, because as leaders, I think we need to invest in ourselves. And I think we need to network with other leaders and learn from each other. And every time they come back, and I go through leadership training as well, I'll go to something I'm really interested in, or if I've had something really difficult that I've been managing, just so that it's a gift to ourselves. How do we show up being the best we can be and show up being the best manager and leader we can be for our teams?
I think you've really honed in on something that I think is so important for women to hear. And that's, being a good salesperson doesn't always translate into being a good manager, right? And there are skill sets that we are really born into that come very naturally to us. And as we're moving up through the ranks, we have to learn new skills and new things.
Right.
And I think for a lot of women that puts them into an imposter syndrome situation, or it makes them feel like they're inadequate in some way. And so I think that, and you alluded to this a little bit, but we really want to know what your favorite negotiation secret is, because especially as women are climbing up that ladder, right? Like, what is it? How can these women who are really looking to move, like maybe they're looking to change companies or they're looking for something different, what's your favorite negotiation secret for these women?
So I have two things that I think are important, and then I'll tell you my one secret. So again, I think it's really important for you to have the data. So as you're coming in to negotiate, you need to be really clear on what you bring to the table, the results you bring, the value you bring, right? You're very clear, and it's not subjective. You have the data. And when you're a producer, a lot of times the numbers open the door for you, right? But there's other ways, right? It's not just about the numbers. It's about the relationships. It's about the new business. It's about the retention. It's about all of those things. But once you're out of the way of the data and making your case, it goes back a little bit to what I said earlier. There is power in silence. And I'm going to tell you a really funny story. Yes. Years back, when my boss came to me and wanted me to take on additional responsibilities, I told him I had to think about it, because I was in this really good place. My work-life balance was good, and I loved my job, and the stuff that he was asking me to take on, I wasn't sure I was going to like as much, right? I wouldn't have as much balance in my life. And one thing I learned is you really want to make sure your job brings you joy, and you can enjoy what you do, and you really want to love what you do. So he's talking to me about taking on this job, and I said I needed to think about it. And then 2 days later, he calls me into his office and he wants to talk to me about taking this job, and he tells me how much more he's going to pay me. And I was so busy thinking about, because he had added another responsibility in what he was saying, like he was sliding it in, in the conversation. I was trying to absorb what he was saying. And then he took the piece of paper away and he said, "You're right, that's not enough money. And I'll come back to you." And I thought, it really wasn't a negotiation tactic at all. I was just trying to absorb the fact that I think I heard he wants me to take on even more. And he's thinking he's sliding this new salary, this piece of paper with this new salary that I'm just going to think is so great. And he completely read it, that my silence was, this is unacceptable. And when he came back, the amount of my raise was doubled.
Wow.
Power of not saying anything.
Yes.
That's a sales
I wish I would have invented it, but it just happened.
Yes, Liz is always telling me, when I first started my business, I'm a social worker by training.
Set the price and be quiet.
Yeah, a master's degree and a PhD in social work. And Liz, I'd be like, what is my problem? I can't ask for money. People aren't paying me. And she's like, you're not being quiet. Tell them how much you charge and then shut your mouth.
First person that speaks.
It's true. It's so true.
Yeah.
I didn't learn that early on. I fell into it, but it is a powerful secret. There is a lot of power in silence.
I love that
and
so
women
much, Marcia. So good.
Don't we feel like we're responsible for filling the void?
Yeah.
And we don't have to, especially when you're negotiating for yourself. The other thing I would say, the advice I would give, because throughout my career, there have been times where I was tapped on the shoulder and asked to take something on. And again, some of that got me out of my comfort zone. And that's fine as you're working your way up, but really spend some time thinking, is that new role going to give back to you? The organization wants you to do it. The organization thinks you're the right person to do it. But will it bring you satisfaction, joy, fill you up? Will it make you feel like you have the right purpose? Because sometimes we get so caught up in somebody wanting to give us a promotion, we don't spend a lot of time thinking, so now I'm going to be, you name it, I'm going to be writing press releases all day. How do I feel about that versus what I was doing before? Or I'm going to just be calling clients on the phone. I'm not traveling anymore. Whatever that looks like, make sure that new role will work for you.
I love that.
I love it so much.
So if you had one empowering idea for women to share, I'd love to hear them all, but in this case, let's just do one. If you had one to share, what would it be?
One, make friends and support other women in the industry. So when I was coming up in my career, there weren't many women in the industry, let alone women leaders or female colleagues. There were some, but clearly not as many as there are today. And what I've truly believe is important is when women support other women and when women help other women, there's nothing more powerful. And I've seen it through the network with Empower. I see women showing up each and every day, not only helping each other, but doing business with one another or helping somebody through. And I think we need more of it. And so for those women out there who see other women as perhaps competitors or that there aren't many seats at the table, so you've got to be the one to grab one, I would say be inclusive and support other women. And you'll be amazed at all of the value not only you get from it personally, but professionally, how much support there is out there.
I love it.
That's the second time that someone has brought up the seat at the table idea.
Yeah.
About that there is not just one seat at the table. If you get to the table and there's only one seat, bring in some more chairs and make the table bigger. I think that it's a really interesting thing that y'all in the industry have really identified for us is this idea of stop elbowing women out of the way and start figuring out how to bring everybody
create space
and create space.
Missy, I think it might be our polite way to say, why else would they be in competition? Right? Why else would their women compete with other women instead of support other women? And I think we assume the reason that must be is because there must be a feeling of not many seats at the top.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe it's our responsibility to, put a hand out and bring someone up with us and really support women. And when you're in the room, if you are in a room and you know about a successful woman who's not in the room and it's appropriate, you bring that person's accomplishments up and not wait until they're sitting at the table, but make sure people are aware that there are really powerful, influential contributors that are out there that maybe they should know about or engage with. But inclusion is so important. And if women aren't being part of the solution, that's a problem.
Yeah. When I started talking to Missy about this crazy idea I had, as a producing woman, I've been a branch manager, but that's really my core as a producing loan officer. I've worked for companies that have kind of let me in on margin compression and explained things to me and included me. And it made my job easier, I find, to sell rates or programs or explain to my clients what's going on. And then I have companies that don't. And if you're not lucky enough to have a sales rally with your company, or even those that have sales rallies, we're left in the dark a lot. And if we as women can come together and help each other understand, we can maybe fill some of those holes together and we can do a better job at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And we kind of have a tribe. We feel like we belong, and everyone really wants to feel like they belong, like they're not alone.
Right. And it's interesting because I have seen you're talking about producers. So there are various sales positions, as you know, in our industry. And I've watched some women open up doors for other women who could not get access to the decision makers in their companies because they had these long-standing relationships with other men in the industry who were there for years and years and years. And, the women were new coming into these roles. And there were female leaders who said, well, wait a minute, come on in and talk to me. And it opened doors that they never knew would exist if they hadn't made that connection. So I do believe that if we are willing to connect and help one another, there's such strong business potential in all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage people to pick up the phone and just call people, call their female managers and executives. I think just as I'm surprised that I'm so lucky to talk to Marcia Davies today, and you said yes, right? I think that we all would be surprised at how many women would really love to share their experiences as well and help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
They're out there.
Thank you so much for your time, Marcia. It's been
Yes.
a pleasure chatting with you.
Missy and Liz, this has been great. Thank you for inviting me to participate in your interview series. And I know we're going to work together in 22, right?
Yep. 2022. That's right. February.
All right. Well, let's stay in touch. That's a long way away.
It is. Thank you so much.
Not as long as you think it is, Marcia.
Yeah, that's true.
Hang tight for just a second, okay?
Okay.